Hi, I'm Jeff Walter, and welcome back to the Training Impact Podcast. My guest today is Jimmy McFeeters. Jimmy is the Vice President of Development and Franchising at the Protein Bar and Kitchen. He has a deep passion and love for family, friends, sales, racing, skiing, food, and learning. That's a lot of things to be passionate about, but I like them all. And so, Jimmy, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Jim, the first thing I'm always interested in is I believe we're all accidental tourists in this world. And so how did you end up as the vice president of development and franchising for the Protein Bar? Tell us about your path.
Yeah, honestly, it comes down to knowing people and being within the industry and always networking. I had a friend at Fishman PR that was starting to work with Protein Barn Kitchen, and I happened to be leaving a position at that time, and he seemed to think that it was a good fit and introduced me to Jeff Drake. And after all, it was a great fit. Now we're sitting here 2 years later, and we've got the whole franchise development program rolling, and it's been pretty exciting.
And have you been in franchise space for a while and
Yeah,
this was a natural thing to come over to or?
yeah. I'd spent the better part of about almost 10 years previous to that. I started with a company called Focus Brands, which is now Go-To Foods. I started with that group, sold all 7 of their brands, did franchise development there as a director of sales, and then became a senior director of sales and managed a group of people that sold pretty much west of the Mississippi of all brands, and had a wonderful tenure there, and ventured out and worked with some good friends in the industry at WowWorks, and then went over to Topper's Pizza in Wisconsin. And then that's when things came to be with Protein Bar and Kitchen. You kind of jumped around a little bit and was kind of getting my feel for what was a good fit as far as the brand. And I wanted to grow a brand from the groundwork. And,
Okay.
this was exactly where I ended up and have had that opportunity now. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, and that's the reason, one of the reasons I want to talk to you and have this conversation is I'm really focusing on, how to scale without sacrificing and going from that founder that has that great concept that has got a couple of units up and maybe you've got a few of those initial franchisees that are true believers because they know the founder to actually scaling but maintaining the quality and doing it without sacrificing quality or that and getting into that business. So that's the primary thing I want to focus on. But before we get into that, Justin, love of skiing and racing. What type of racing and what type of skiing?
Yeah, all forms of racing, honestly. My family runs deep with dirt, small track racing.
Uh huh.
Illinois, I had a family member that ran a track in Jacksonville, Illinois for many years and ran with the World of Outlaws with sprint cars. So that just, when you're born into that, the passion's there and it runs deep. And they always say it kind of gets into your blood, which is true. My kids run what's called quarter midgets, which is a small version of a sprint car. They run for NASCAR U Series. Actually, this evening we'll be in Indianapolis at a banquet. My son got 5th in the nation, so it's really exciting.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
We'll be headed over there tonight, and all 3 of my kids run. I have a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old. My 9-year-old is the one that raced competitively this year. My daughter, which is 7, she actually won a national race this year, but she didn't complete the full season, so she didn't do the national points. But it's been a lot of fun. Uh, it is a huge passion of ours. We run pavement and dirt, and yeah,
Very cool. Well, hey, we're right down the road from Michigan International
yeah,
Speedway. So if you're ever up that way, give me a ring.
yeah. I think there's a big national race at Kalamazoo, so it's not super close to that, but we'll
Yeah.
be up in Michigan probably this year at some point.
And then skiing downhill or water
Both.
or
I grew up water skiing and here in Illinois. My passion took me to college. I was on the water ski team at Southern Illinois University and had a lot of fun with
wow.
it. And then downhill skiing from the time I was probably in 3rd or 4th grade. Didn't miss a year of hitting the slopes. Whether it was started off in Wisconsin doing some small stuff, but once my group of buddies got old enough, about 16, we started rolling out to Colorado every year,
Yeah.
spring
That's
break.
it. That's so different. Yeah, I
Yeah,
grew up East Coast and skiing in the Catskills, and
yeah, oh
then
yeah.
and then headed up to Vermont. And then I remember like first time I went to Aspen, it was like, oh, this is completely different.
Yeah, I
And
love
it's
it. I take the kids up. Me and the family will go up to Wisconsin this year, but we have been out to Colorado as a family, and we'll plan to do that probably next year as well. So always something we will have to do.
Well, it's cool. So I've got 2 adult daughters, and we're going out to Whistler right after the New Year's, and so it'll be a bunch of fun, and one of them is bringing
Jealous.
her boyfriend around. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But should be a lot of fun. Should be a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
I've always wanted to go. Haven't been to Whistler yet.
Yeah, I have not been there, so I'm looking forward to it. It should be a bunch of fun, but it's really interesting, as the kids have gotten older. Yeah, went from them being like, "Wow, dad really knows what he's doing," and as a father, really being concerned about my kids going, way too fast, and and skiing too aggressively. To, hey, dad, you're getting a little older now. You got to kind of. They're the ones kind of telling me it's like, you do you really want to attack that black diamond with all reckless abandon? And been doing it for like 45 years, so yeah, I kind of do.
Yeah.
But it's funny.
It,
It's funny. Yeah, I just I love skiing. I absolutely love the downhill. Used to, and when I used to live out in Sacramento, and I remember but my buddies there. I never did this, but they would do what they call the California Ski Day, and they would go water skiing on the Sacramento River in the morning, and then head up to Heavenly and go snow skiing in the afternoon. And I was
something
like,
I've always wanted to do. Never done
yeah.
it. I've
Yeah,
wanted.
same here. Same here. I was like, "Hey, that sounds good," and then it never came to fruition. But that's really cool.
Being an Illinois guy, that's hard.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm in Michigan now, so that ain't happening. Yeah, maybe. Unless of course you slap on the water skis and go on the ice with behind a snowmobile.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get back to Protein Bar and Kitchen. So tell me about Protein Bar and Kitchen. What's the concept? What's the focus? Where are you guys at? And all that. Help us understand what type of brand this is. What type of
Yeah,
franchise?
I mean, it's a beautiful brand that brings better for you a category at a quick service restaurant version.
Okay.
So we've been around for quite some time. We've been around since 2009. We're not brand new by no means, but we're also not one of the brands from the 70s or 80s. But the brand was founded in downtown Chicago, and the idea was that you needed to have fast items. You had lines out the door. You had a big urban market. We were right across from the Sears Tower at that time, now Willis Tower, and you'd had to have quick service time, and you wanted to get out food that was something that someone could walk with, and also you know have a quick lunch, and be able to have that lunch and feel good about what they ate, not be miserable for the afternoon, whatnot. So the brand started with just protein shakes for the most part.
Okay.
In the location, it's about 1,150 square foot. And after about a year, they realized, hey, we need to add to this menu. It's hard to pay rent with just blended drinks. So they started doing quinoa bowls and salads based, salads with quinoa base to add that protein, and it took off like rocket. There was a lot of interest in the brand. It grew fairly fast, but like every brand, there's a little bit of growing pains. About 2013, the brand got acquired by El Catterton, and
Hmm.
uh, once they got the money, they started getting some larger footprints, and started making some choices from real estate perspective that probably weren't best for the brand, and not focusing on the menu and the customer. In 2016, that got turned around. A gentleman by the name of Jeff Drake came in and became the CEO. And what he wanted to focus on was the customer and that menu, to make sure that it was bringing the brand forward and keeping it more up to date as the consumer is wanting the new products and better tasting. A lot of people that want better for you food are willing to sacrifice on taste. That's something we didn't want to do, bring
Right.
the brand forward. We wanted it to be for everybody, and separating the word everybody, meaning that anybody that wants to eat, period, wants to eat this food. It just so happens to be better for you. We wanted to have that broad appeal. So he did that. He worked on it. He worked with a chef that you know, brought our simple complexity, from a brand perspective, and still was able to keep that simple operation model, but also make that food, be more appealing to the broader group. We had people that would come in and say a lot of the food was good, but it tastes the same across the menu. We diversified that, made things, taste different within the product lines, and really from that point on to about 2017, that was 2016, about 2018, 2019, the brand was in a better place than it's ever been. And of course, we all know what kind of happened there. And being a brand that was predominantly downtown Chicago, a big hit. It hurt the brand significantly. We closed down about 90%, 95% of the entire brand. We had the one location open in the hospital at Northwestern that kind of kept things afloat, and a very small team, 95% of the people within the company. Slowly, 6, 12, 18 months later, we were starting to open locations. 21, 22, things started really, bringing back to life. At that time in 2019, previous to all that happening, the vision of franchising was there. They just hadn't quite got there. They were getting FTD ready. They were getting ready to go basically
Okay.
20, and that all got put on hold. 2023, that really started getting the ball rolling, and they went ahead and opened the prototype in Northbrook, Illinois, which is exactly what we wanted to expand, more of a suburban
Uh-huh.
style that has both daytime population but rooftops at the same time, and that store has been nothing but a success. Here that opened in June of 23. We're sitting, 2.5 years later almost, and it's a great performing store within our system. And we modeled it as if a franchisee was taking over or was going to be opening that store. So when we did our opening, when we did our marketing throughout that first year, the way that we would do that is how we built that structure for any franchisee that's going to be opening a new store as well. So we've got a really great prototypical build out, location, and marketing operations model that can go forward with franchisees. And that's our brand in a nutshell. We're excited to be where we're at right now, and we've got a lot of success rolling right now. So it's fun to talk about.
Yeah. So just make sure I understood. So the current CEO came in around 2016. At
Mhm.
that time, it was all corporate owned locations.
Correct. Yep.
And it was, it kind of hit a plateau, but then it started taking off again until COVID. And then, COVID did what COVID did. Or actually, COVID didn't do it. The shutdowns did what the shutdowns did. They shut things down, and so there was a big contraction. But then coming out of it, was the plan prior to COVID to go to go the franchising route,
Yeah, they
but
were
then you got to
working.
put that on hold, and then you came out of COVID and like, okay, let's dust the plans off and open a model store and rock and roll.
Yeah,
Is that
and Jared Cohen, Jeff Drake and Jared Cohen and the team had really put together a great operations model and everything. Like I was saying, that Northbrook store was really not just like some places will open a prototype, but they did the prototype as an actual model that would be franchisable. Like everything they did is what a franchisee would do, so that we could take down the notes and everything of that entire process. So we have a roadmap for anybody that's going to be following us, not just the build out. And that was really spectacular the way they did that. And that's when I came into play. So that June, I ended up coming in September. They thought, hey, we're ready to go. I've got a good sales background and know a lot of franchisees out there. So I got plug and played. I worked with the FDD to get it ready to go. And then we, about beginning of 2024 is when we really launched the franchise program, but we did it from an organic perspective. We didn't go out there and spend a ton of money. We more or less wanted to find some brand fans and some of the operators that I know in markets that are kind of surrounded the Chicago market, which is Indianapolis has been one of our big ones right now that we're growing, and kind of get a foothold on how we're going to be doing this, and not go get over our skis, not to go back to the skiing topic, but we didn't want to get over our skis. We wanted to make sure that everything we're doing is building a foundation for the future. So, finding the right franchisee, finding the right development plan, finding right locations, all of that's very particular right now, because our success now is what, you know, really plans out our future for the brand as a whole.
so about how many units do you have now, and how
We
many are
have
corporate and how many are
Yeah,
franchise?
we have 17 locations, and two of them are franchised locations in the non-trad space. So that's the other thing we didn't really talk about, but the airport space has been very important for our growth as well. This past year, my CEO has deep ties into the non-trad world, and he traveled a lot himself, and the brand was kind of a fit for the non-trad space, just because we're so used to fast ticket orders. In the downtown Chicago urban market, this
Right.
brand really transcended really well into the airport space. So we've opened Salt Lake City, Boise, O'Hare, and LaGuardia this last year and a half or so, and that's been a huge success. And what's great about that is the concessionaires that are within those airports have latched onto our brand, and they like us so much that they want to put us in their other airports. So really, it's not been much of a sales piece. It's more of a, hey, we want to put you in our FP and go out and go find those other airports to put us in.
Yeah. Well, on a side note, I was in New York at my daughter's for Thanksgiving and flew in and out of LaGuardia, and I saw you guys there. Yeah, I saw the brand there, and I'm like, hey, I know those guys. And
Yep.
I'll be talking to Jimmy in a little bit. And it was like, but delicious food. Um, but and for folks that are not familiar, you said non-trad space.
Yeah, so non-traditional is what I'm talking about there. That's typically college campuses, train stations, airports, military bases, things of that sort. The airport space has been predominantly where we're going into, but we are right now, we've got a couple deals that we've secured in some college campuses, one in DC that Compass is going to be doing for us. And then we're looking at other medical centers that what actually our franchisees are going to be jumping into in Indianapolis. And then traditional, we've got, like as I mentioned, we've got locations throughout Indianapolis, Nashville, Florida, Boston coming soon. So a lot of excitement there around the franchise bases and the franchisees we're looking for. And I'm sure we'll probably get into this, but this goes into the kind of the training piece. The franchisees we're looking for are those who have somewhat been there, done it, or at least shown the business acumen pieces that structurally fit with what we are doing. A little bit of development, a little bit of management experience from a personnel. We're wanting to find those people that really can coach and teach, not necessarily manage themselves. We do not look at our brand as an absentee model. No franchise should really be an absentee model because you got to be working on your business. I fully feel there's a lot of people that are out there promoting that absentee model, which for me in the franchise space, remember, especially in the restaurant space, there may be some absentee models out there. So I don't want to take that away from some of those folks out there and the service industries and whatnot. But in the food space, you got to have your hand on that business at any time. And you got to make sure that, you know, you're working on that business and not necessarily working the cash register or the line. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that. But with our business, it isn't a restaurant that is not high complex. And when I say it's not, it doesn't have a lot of complexity to it, is that we don't have any open flame. We don't have any gas, stoves or
Mhm.
anything of that sort. Everything's run from blenders and turbo chef ovens that sit on top of a tabletop that's run by electricity, and then we have some CVAP steam units that keep product to temperature. So everything's pre prepped for the
Mhm.
line so that everything is ready to go. You're not cooking to order. You're not doing a lot of cook prep from raw meats or anything. A lot of our product comes in sous vide and warm bath cooked, and then we take that and we do our proprietary blend on it, and it's much more simple of a restaurant operation than those who have to actually cook proteins from a raw stage or do a lot of that prep on the raw meats, which a lot of our operators love.
So getting back to who the right franchisee is, the model that kind of fleshed out in my mind is you got to find the right people in the right place, and then it's about processes and systems for marketing, sales, service.
Mhm.
And so what I heard is in terms of the right type of franchisee for y'all, the right one for you is somebody that's got experience in the space in the quick service restaurant and the folk that and the type of person that wants to not buy themselves a job but work on the business, not in the business. And there's there's other models out there where it's like owner operator and they're working the cash register, they're working in the business, not on the business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then and how and it's interesting because for having a handful of locations, there's a large geography that you're covering because of the airports. How are you supporting those, or what's the right beyond having been there, done that, looking for somebody that's work on the business versus in the business? What makes for a great match beyond?
Yeah. So again, with someone that I hate to use the term again, been there, done that, but like for instance, our franchisee in Indianapolis is a 10-year franchisee. He's worked with Jimmy John's, Nothing But Cakes. He's developing Crave Cookie, and now he's adding us to the portfolio. He does not have his Jimmy John's or Nothing But Cakes anymore,
Right.
but he still has his Crave Cookie. He is someone that wants to find a brand that fits him and his wife from their life goals and their
Hmm.
personalities and everything. So with Protein Barn Kitchen, it's food that they would eat themselves. It's a product that
Right.
they themselves would enjoy. That's why they really wanted to add us to their portfolio. And then the simplicity of our brand. Once they came into our stores and saw the simplicity of operation, they were sold. They said they tasted food, they saw the simplicity of operation, and they said, "Let's go." Um, that really, the way they work and the way they develop, he's looking to open 3 4 stores at a time, so
Hmm.
that really fits our model right now too. Someone that can scale quickly, that has the liquidity to be able to do so, that's important. Really, going back to the airport spaces, con- concessionaires, they already have a structure. They have employees already. They have their own operational HR program set up, their payroll, everything is already set up. So we're a brand that comes in and they have to learn our model, learn our intellectual property and the way we do things. But once it's developed, we just become part of their system, which we've been a very good plug and play brand because of our operations being so simple. A lot of times when we've gone into those airports, they have 8 to 10 other restaurants, and then their employees are fighting to be the ones that work at our brand because it's an enjoyable brand to work for. There's no hot spaces within the restaurant. You're not slaving over a grill or a fryer or anything of that sort, and it's a fun atmosphere. You're making better for you food, so it's a lighter atmosphere. It's a fast pace, but it also makes your time go by faster when you're at work. So I would say that's probably one of the other things is that there's not within our brand there's not super peak times.
Right.
Of course, our lunch rush and things of that sort. But we stay pretty consistent throughout the day because we have a breakfast menu, we have a lunch menu. We cater to the dinner day part too with a lot of our products, and then snack is there all throughout the day as well with our blended drinks, our acai bowls, and our grab and go items. Really we stay consistently busy throughout the day, which helps our AV, helps the brand be able to work in a model that's a smaller square foot, but be able to keep the capacity throughout the entire day. So there's all kinds of rewarding aspects to the type of food and the type of locations we go into.
Yeah. So okay. So now we got the right type of person, and it sounds like somebody that wants to build a portfolio. They've cut their teeth on a different brand. They want to extend their portfolio. They understand the particular geography. They might be big in Indianapolis, or they and therefore it's or in a given airport, and therefore it's another location within their physical area, and they're hands on, but not working the cash registers, as you said. They're working on it. It's not a passive investor type of model.
Mhm.
Um, and so now we get into the actual operations and the marketing, sales, and delivery of the product. And one of the things you've said is it's simple. So how on the getting the people in the door, buying the food, and getting the food to them, how have those processes and what, if any, technologies are you putting in place to make that happen?
Yeah, we lean heavily on loyalty, which you have to build that loyalty, of course. So that's a big marketing tactic that we utilize from the get go. When we are going to market, we try to build up that loyalty ahead of time. So we're going to local gyms, schools, even fire departments, anywhere that you got a group of people that are probably looking to better themselves in some way
Right.
and also like food. Who doesn't like food? So you get those key components, and we market directly to those. There's a lot of the mom groups out there,
Mhm.
sport leagues, little league sports are crazy right now. So tying into any of those, we had a lot of success with targeting those specific kind of groups because
Mhm.
once you get with one of those groups, it kind of grows within that group, whether it be catering or different events we do with them. Um, and then also building that loyalty within those groups. and giving back to those groups from a reward loyalty standpoint. We do our VIP grand opening. So the day before we have our grand opening, we invite a lot of those folks that are specific to those groups, that are, whether they're micro influencers or someone within the local area that has some kind of pull, and give them some sort of reward for coming out and visiting the location and trying the food. Once you're in there and you try the food, we're going to win you over. So that's a key component of our product, is that we just have great tasting, better for you items. Our promise is delicious, nutritious, protein packed. So when we deliver on that promise, once someone tries us, usually they're going to talk about us within those groups, and that's really helped us with specifically like our Northbrook store that didn't have a lot of brand equity, considering it was outside of the urban market of Chicago. It is a suburb of Chicago, and there were people in that market that knew the brand because, a lot of people do travel, or did travel, to downtown to work and then back. But there was a lot of people that didn't know the brands. Growing that location was a very organic way to show how we would go to market. There's some traditional marketing that we did, like, yeah, door hangers and things of that
Mhm.
sort, that you may seem like it's out of date, but it really did work for us, making sure that those households really understood that there was a brand in the market that is, you know, something that you could go have and feel good about. You're gonna feed your whole family, and it's not gonna be something that, just because you ate out, you got to have that. We all have that night where, yeah, I've got little kids and everything. You're like, you know what? Let's just order pizza tonight. Let's get it done. We've all been at practice, wrestling
Yeah.
practice. We got to eat. This is a place where you can go order that food, and everyone feels good about it and happy about it at the end of the day. And the parents feel good about it, that their kids ate that product. So,
So let's play a scenario. Let's assume that I had a couple of quick service restaurants or cafes or other things here in the Ann Arbor area, and I wanted to open up a protein bar and kitchen, say in downtown Ann Arbor. We got a nice big university there, but maybe not on the university grounds. But a lot of student population, a lot of the like a good demographic for what you're looking for in terms of, and it's a very kind of health conscious type of town. And you go, yeah, Jeff, you're just the type of guy we want. So what does life look like? What happens next?
but funny you say that. I actually have a gentleman in the western Detroit suburbs that has locations in Ann Arbor and whatnot that I'm working with right now. But
Okay, well then
he beat you to the punch.
he
But
beat me to the punch.
yeah, no, if you were and you had that, you would just basically, you can reach out to me directly. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to Protein Bar and Kitchen's website, theproteinbar.com, and fill out a franchise, inquiry, and just say, hey, I want to add this brand to my portfolio. I'm in this market. I reach out personally. That's the other thing, is that it's because I'm building the foundation of franchisees. I'm very specific on being able to touch every point of what's going on right now. I know at some point I'll probably have to step back and do a little bit different on how I process this. But right now, I'm making sure that I'm the one that gets in contact with the individual. And obviously, when I see the information come in, you know, knowing that you have portfolio brands, or at least another brand, does pique my interest, because I know you've been there, done that. You've hired people, you've fired people, you've, you know, coached the
Hmm.
team. You've done the things that, it's a big box to be checked. Now, it
Right.
doesn't mean that I won't go with someone that doesn't have franchise experience. I want to make sure I do say that during this podcast, because there are a lot of folks out there that in my past that have been the best franchisees that I've ever had, that came from a corporate background. There's a lot of structure within corporate backgrounds that are perfect to franchising, because you have the ability to follow and execute on a plan. And that's ideally what we're looking for, is that person that can take this playbook, go and open the playbook and follow the playbook. That's franchising in a nutshell, is being able to do that. But that's what we're looking for. And those folks that have the liquid capability and that are looking to better themselves, what a better opportunity to go open a brand that not only is a brand that is better for you personally, but it's better for the community. And we're in a brand category that's popping right now. Protein is huge. The word protein is being used by multiple brands, which has been absolutely wonderful for us. Everyone's saying protein, keep saying it, because it's the first word in our name. So
That's right.
It's been a really wonderful year. Our comp sales are in a year where a lot of brands are slipping in comps. We are the opposite. We've been doing a fantastic job. I think of our 17 stores, our lowest comp sales around 16%. So we've got
Mhm.
stores that go all the way up to 40% comping over last year. So it's been absolutely fantastic year for us, and we only see it getting better because of the trends and the need for protein. And there's a lot of people that are trying to better themselves. There's a lot of people on GLP-1s that specifically, are requiring higher protein. We give that promise. So
Yeah. So if I so a new franchisee, uh, you go through the selection process. They get vetted. They're in. What happens next?
yeah, the day you sign your franchise agreement, we're looking for real estate. I have a wonderful real estate partnership with Dina Zimmerman. She's out of Baum Realty in Chicago. She is a national player. She has a broker network throughout the entire country that I have taken advantage of over my past 10 year of franchising in every brand pretty much that I've worked with.
Mhm.
And we use QSR specialty realtors in every market that know where the bodies are buried, what they say in the real estate world, where the locations that aren't on the market are coming to the market, or locations where a brand is struggling and maybe it fits our perfect square footage requirements and everything. And we can actually be putting in an LOI on a brand that's opening, operating right now, but know that there is a situation where that's going to come available. So we're first in the door. Is it easy? No. Real estate's never easy in the restaurant space, especially as competitive as it's gotten. Rents are going up and things of that sort. But we have been attacking the market in a meaningful manner that we're prepping ourselves for 27, 28, and 29 right now, whether it be new developments or those locations that are going to be transitioning in that times.
All right. So we find the right real estate, and then the build out starts. Then what happens? How do I how do I and my folks understand get to understand the protein bar way?
Yeah, so a lot of times the groups we do work with, fortunately, do have development experience. They've built restaurants, they've had that capability. But if you don't, we do have a wonderful team. Myself, I not only do the franchise side, I do the real estate and the development portion of it. And we have a stair step process that steps you through the and painful development schedule. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. And we've got a group out of Chicago, Cresca Co. that she is her Joanna. She used to actually work for Protein Bar in the 2013 to 2016 range when we were developing, opening a lot of restaurants. She has a lot of experience. She's opened her own practice. We use her as a third party development management team. She's an architect as well. So we plug and play her where needed. If the franchisee needs that hand holding, she's a great capability. The cost of hiring that third party, which we build into our FDD configuration, it, it really helps save money at the end of the day. You may pay 15, 20, $30,000 for the construction management development portion of that, but really, at the end of the day, when you're doing development, there's sometimes costs that can be occurred through the process that are 70, 80, 90, $100,000. She really manages that so that you feel confident about going through that without having that experience. Myself, I've done enough development where I can be dangerous, but I'm not the expert in the category, so I really do
Right.
rely on her. But then our franchisees that have that development experience, a lot of times they have the GC already set up in their market that they've dealt with and worked with. They know that process, which is why it's intriguing to us to work with those kind of franchisees. It's a whole been there, done that kind of mentality where the development's not the scary part of it, like it is sometimes for a new franchisee.
And so now, once we've got that, our handle on that, how do I learn the protein bar way and protein bar and kitchen way in terms of, all that delicious food that I'm going to be preparing? How to, and working that marketing that you talked about earlier to get
Yeah.
that traffic in there. Like there's a, how do I get educated on that? How does that happen? How do I
Yeah.
get my people educated on that?
Marie Crawford, from our team's super tenured. She's around 12 years with Protein Bar and Kitchen.
Hmm.
She heads up the entire training and operations side of the brand, and you will work. Once you sign your franchise agreement, you're going through development. We have timeline processes to the grand opening that you'll be working with our training team.
Right.
You would come to Chicago for a 4 to 6 week period of time, depending on your level of experience. Sometimes we have folks that come in and knock it out in 2 weeks. Sometimes it's 4 weeks. If you're very new to it and we feel like you're struggling, if it takes 6 weeks, great. Typically, it's not going to take the 6 weeks though. But and we'll train you, your manager that you're going to hire. That's the other thing that's wonderful about our FTD that I love to mention is a lot of other brands don't put in that manager and salary in the FTD,
Right.
or, the total portion of that FTD. We have that in there. So, there's a $70,000, $65,000 paid in manager that's already built in the FTD, so that when you see those final numbers, that's already taken. That's not. So if you go work in there, that is built in there that you're paid as a manager if that's the case. You're not just taking what's off the top. So always like to mention that. But yeah, Marie does a fantastic job with the training, and we have a team that Carlos Rodriguez, once you get to the point where you're having your grand opening, we come out a week ahead. We train your staff that you've hired to that point, and we have a process to help you get to that point. Once you've trained Schmidt, and then we have our grand opening, and then you have a layer of support that is going to be there for us, especially right now as we're building the foundation of our franchisees. We're going to be doing P&L meetings, making sure your food costs, your label costs are all in par with what we feel like the brand should be operating, and then we're going to talk about best practices at all times. We just like I would say every franchisee out there or franchisor out there wants their franchisees to be better, because when they're better, everyone is rewarded from that. So we're going to be definitely making sure that our franchisees have a good footing and a good understanding of what they'll be expected.
Okay, and to maintain that consistency, well, I guess I got a couple questions popped in my head, but one is and we kind of touched on it a little earlier, but with the airport focus, I know a lot of franchisors like to cluster geographically because it becomes easier to support, right? And then when you have this satellite that's 600 miles away, that's an outpost way out there. It's just harder to support. There's nobody that can stop by. There's no other franchisee that you can say, hey, Mary, can you slide by there? They're having problems with this. And just like with what I find interesting is how have you guys addressed that? Because with the airport approach, the non-trad approach, it sounds to me like you're more spread out for the number of units you have than you would traditionally see. I mean, you
Yeah,
got the cluster in Chicago and Indianapolis,
Yeah, we
but
have a great supply chain system right now. We have some different main suppliers that we use in different regions that really help us with that. And we, as important as our product is in our proprietary SKUs, we make sure that we have a backup plan for each one of those SKUs in some of these other markets, so that the product is never limited or unavailable in these markets. And then we've got, some of our proteins that are direct shipped. So it's not as big of an issue. Shipping powder is pretty simple, and we don't have to worry about the distributors worrying about developing or delivering those. But we have a really smooth process. We've been doing it for a long time, and we've got a fantastic team that has mastered the distribution of this. And from a support level from us, because they're in the airport space, it's easy for us to get to them. You fly in, you go visit them, spend the day, and those are larger concessionaires that we don't have to babysit. That's the thing.
right.
When you're working with those concessionaires, they're operating 8 restaurants within that airport most of the time or more. So when we're working with them, they're a high level. We can come in, we can make sure we audit them like we would traditionally, and make sure the products. But we keep you know an understanding of the reviews that are coming through too. We're very big on customer feedback. So we know traditionally if there's an issue in a restaurant, we know that there's something going on pretty much immediately, because the product, as soon as we get a bad review, we're on top of it. And a lot of times our reviews are very thorough. So we can know exactly who the employee was that gave the bad experience, or the product, exactly when that was handed out. That's the wonderful thing about our technology these days, is we can pinpoint the problem and execute on fixing that problem right away. So we're very keen on that. Jared Cohen is our COO, and he wears multiple hats in our company. He's a technology guru. He is a marketing guru, um, and a financial guru. I love to tell this story is that he is a Jeopardy two-time champion. That tells
My.
you anything,
Yeah, yeah.
the kind of guy he is, and we absolutely love him for that. And he is a strategic thinker and has come up with a lot of plans. He's a secret weapon within our team that I don't think a lot of brands have. And he has mastered the ability to do a lot of these things that some of the big brands that I've worked with, Cinnabon and McAllister's, at the Focus Brands Go-To Foods Group, that they never did figure out at the times that I was with them. So it's pretty impressive, and that comes down to just the leadership that Jeff Drake gives to us from a team leader and a someone that we can all look up to, and creates the just atmosphere within our brand that everyone wants to do better. So
It's really interesting as you were mentioning that with the non-trads and especially the airports. It's like, well, yeah, you're in Chicago, you got O'Hare, you got United Airlines,
yeah,
and I I'm listening. I'm like, oh, the game plan is anywhere United can fly direct from Chicago, which is
it's
pretty
funny.
much anywhere.
Well, it's funny. We landed a lot of Delta terminals, so it's funny you say
Yeah.
that. But yeah, it is
Yes.
interesting how we can just out of Chicago, it's pretty simple to get anywhere you want to
Yeah. Well,
direct.
and the LaGuardia one is in the Delta terminal. I'm here in Michigan. I'm here in the Detroit area. I fly out of Metro, which is a Delta hub. And I was like, and it's a beautiful restaurant, by the way. It's in the new Delta terminal there. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, we're excited. If
it's up
you ever,
on top of the escalator looking down. It's just
yep,
really nice. But
O'Hare location's absolutely beautiful as well. They're all beautiful, but we're really proud of like all of those locations. And we've got Houston coming up in 2026, which is going to be an absolutely beautiful uh, restaurant as well. So
but it's kind of cool, I guess, from growing the network. That's a kind of different strategy, and I think it goes to the uniqueness of your brand because I would only imagine then, well, once you've planted the flag, say at the Salt Lake City airport, well, then getting on campus is not a big. Well, it's easy to it's easy to get to because of the hub and spoke, but then starting to it's almost like you plant the seed at and then you can go to another non-trad place, which is also, and you, like you said, you're dealing with folks that have been there, done that, and so they don't need as much of that operational hand holding and then once you get that going, it's like, okay, now I can start building out the traditional locations within that geography. Like it's
yeah,
a really interesting approach.
it's funny because our what's wonderful about our non-trad locations is they're the high volume. We do heavy volumes, so it gives us a foothold in those markets with distribution from the get-go, where a traditional location, it may take you 3 or 4 to get the volumes up to be able to support that market. Our airport space actually fulfills that need from the get-go. So we could go
Right.
to Salt Lake City and support, two, 3 stores very easy right now from a distribution standpoint, where
Exactly.
other brands would not have that capability. Likewise, in the Northeast, we're in LaGuardia. Anywhere in the Northeast right now, we have product. We can go and seed. Right now, we're probably in first quarter. We're working on a deal in Boston, which is going to be a multi-unit deal with a multi-unit operator. We'll be able to open up multiple stores at a quick time, and then they'll also benefit from the distribution that's already within that market. So it's a very interesting and a very successful way to do it. We believe,
Yeah.
only time will tell, but we are, very bullish on this working, and the type of franchisees we're working with. It also is the piece of that puzzle. So
Yeah. That's really interesting because one thing and this is just me personally, did not appreciate until I've started the podcast and started interviewing a number of folks in the franchise restaurant space is, you know, usually and the nature of what we do for a living here is we're usually on the distribution side, on the channel distribution, right? The downstream. And, 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 and any type of supply chain is usually, there's not a shelf life
yeah,
when you're, but when, with a lot of the tradition, with a lot of the companies that we've worked with on the training side. And one of the things, and you just mentioned it, and another restaurateur. mentioned it. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. The whole supply chain on the restaurant side is perishable.
Hmm.
And so, you can't just go, you know, put up a restaurant in Anchorage. Because if you're going to maintain brand consistency, you got to make sure that your supply chain can get there. And that gets into the things you were talking about. And so I'm just thinking about your growth plan. And that's just freaking genius. And but it goes into, well, you have a certain type of product that has a certain type of dimension to it. Like you were saying, you don't have the hot, you don't have gas, you don't have ovens, you don't have this. So there's a kind of a simplified operation. You've got a bunch of stuff that's non-perishable. I mean, everything's perishable, but that has a longer shelf life that you can do through the central shipping, like the powders and stuff like that. But then the proteins and other more perishable things, you plant that seed, and then poof, you can expand off of that seed, and that's
Yep.
it's something I didn't appreciate in terms of growing the network. So I think I just think it's brilliant. It's really cool. So
Yeah. That's a
tip of the hat.
that Jeff and Jared, my leadership is really, thought deep into and really understand. And then Laura Kramer, she's the one that handles our distribution. She is absolutely amazing. She handles multiple projects within our business, from facilities management and then also culinary. So she's quite amazing. Our team, that's one of the big reasons why I landed there, is that, once I met the team, I was really impressed with what they were doing in the tenure, and then the heart, the passion for the brand that runs through the team. You hear a lot about founder led teams that are very passionate. Well, we are a private equity team, but it has a very personal feel to it. It's not like some of the other brands I've worked for in my past.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I've had that conversation with some other folks too about private equity versus self-funded or founder self-funded or something, or other forms of that. And it's interesting because I think private equity, I think it has a bad it can have a negative reputation, but it's like I think they come in as many flavors as people come in. There are the buy and hold type of firms that they're in it for the long haul, and they want to build long-term value,
Yep.
and like a founder,
Yep.
right?
Well, El Caterson's owned us since 2013, so that means something right there.
Right. And then I think what gets a lot of the press, and I think it's actually a minority of the firms, but it gets the most sensational stories, are the firms that come in and they want to flip something in 3 years.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
And there's a bunch of them out there. Don't get me wrong, but I think it doesn't make the news. You know, PE buys firm, holds them for 20 years, grows them by 5,000%. Right.
Yep.
Like that doesn't make the news. Right.
Yep.
So it's it. And so it's good to hear that, because as I've been talking to folks, and that you kind of can get this, oh, well, we're founder owned, and therefore we don't have, we don't have that, that short-term grow or perish type of mentality. And it's important to note that it's that hyper growth, grow at all costs, short-term mentality it's really a subset of firms that are really focused on flipping. And
It's felt within those organizations all the way down to the people working at the counter. I can promise you that. That's I think a detriment to a lot of brands. Um, you know, that's why I'm very happy to
yeah,
what we're doing, and know that our brand's going to grow the right way. We're going to do things the right way for the franchisees, and our franchisees are going to be like a family. We've talked about, even though we only have a few franchisees, we want to get them together so they know each other, so they can have conversations about good, the bad, the ugly, and
hmm
really be able to help each other as much as we're helping them. So I think that's very important.
yeah, and like I said, that's not the type of thing that makes the journal, right? It's like, yeah, it's like firm buys storied brand, destroys it in 3 short years. That makes the journal,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
the you
Unfortunately,
know firm buys brand, keeps it for 15, 20 years, and grows it to, quadruples its size, and everybody's happy. That
yeah,
just doesn't make the front page.
yeah. Well, yeah, and
But
when, yeah, we won't.
but that's, I think, more the norm.
Yeah,
I think that's
absolutely.
I think that's more the norm, and I think people forget that because there's a huge benefit there of tapping into not only the resources, but financial, but also executive and senior level in terms of
Mhm.
how to navigate a couple of things, especially as you grow. Anyway, it's interesting, kind of outside the purview of what we've been talking about, but I think it's interesting, and I like to mention that because I think I think they've done tremendous amount of good things in the economy and helped a lot of organizations. So, and it's funny because it goes back to how we started the conversation. It's all about fit, right? It's all about fit, and it's getting the right set of owners in there. And are they focused on the long term or are they focused on the short term? And Lord knows there's plenty of there are plenty of owners that are not PEs that are
Yeah,
focused on the short term, right?
absolutely.
And that's so. But I've always been a long term guy, so that's just it's good to it warms my heart because I think it's a I like building long term value. So, and I like firms that do that and take that long term perspective. And I think that's at the end of the day where you really get value. I think everything else is trading on short term. The short term stuff doesn't get you the long term. Yeah, like it's got to be in the long term. Enough philosophy.
It's relationship. It's all relationship driven.
Yeah, well, it's like most of us want to be, when we're looking at mates for ourselves personally. It's like, yeah, there are people that would like to, cycle through, a different partner every 3 weeks. Most of us would rather, go the distance with one partner. You
I'm with my
know,
high school sweetheart, so
yeah,
I like the long term play too.
exactly, and I think and I think that's more soul fulfilling,
Yep.
and I think that translates to business as well. So it's really cool. So what's coming down the pipe for you guys? We kind of talked about the as is and where you're at right now, and the strategy to go. What's the future look like?
Yeah, it's slow and steady. In building the pillars of our our future success. Right now, we're always moving forward on growth. However, when we are doing it right now, we're making sure that we're standing still a little bit to make sure we look back and make sure that everything is in line how we want it to be with who we're choosing as a franchisee and where we're going as a brand and the locations, not only the markets, but the location within those markets. We got to build those flagships in those markets. Indianapolis, it's exciting. We're going to 6 West Washington right off Circle Center. I don't know if you know Indianapolis very well, but it's right there across from where the old Circle Center mall used to be. But there's a lot of exciting things coming in. There's the new casino. There's a bunch of residential coming in. They're doing a rebuild on basically a quarter of the entire Circle portion of the downtown area.
Oh wow,
We went with someone that's a franchisee there, as I mentioned, has experience with other brands, grew up in Zionsville, knows the market, has a huge, deep draw to the market as well. It's Cody Selman and Jamie Fisher are my franchisees there. Jamie is a NASCAR sports broadcast analyst.
oh there you go.
Funny because, my background has nothing to do with why I
It's just
chose them.
coincidence.
Yeah, nothing to do with why I chose him. It's just a personal benefit, I guess,
Yeah.
that Jamie is with the NASCAR space. They have deep roots in the community. They have amazing marketing capabilities. They've got experience with franchising, and they're full speed ahead on growing brands. We've got that, like I said, 6 West Washington and downtown locked up. We're looking at locations in Carmel, Fishers, Broad Ripple, and the medical center in downtown as well. So, a lot of stuff going there. I've got a wonderful group in the Chicago market. They are looking at the Naperville, Downers Grove, Aurora market. We've got a lease sign in Downers Grove. It's right near Main, Ogden. We're really excited about that store opening in 2026, in the spring of 2026. So we've got that location coming open, with many more coming behind it. And then we're working with a group in Nashville to grow in Nashville, or as I mentioned, Jacksonville, Florida, which is an interesting one because of where it's at, but the ties to the community that this gentleman has and his family and the brand. He's also opening Potbelly locations, another Chicago
Mhm.
brand. So he's working, that the synergy behind that is that when he goes to look for real estate, there's a possibility that he can, find a larger space, which there's a lot of 4,000, 3,500 square foot spaces that are on end caps that he can demise and actually work out for both brands as a complete, clean, Potbelly on its own, our location, Protein Bar and Kitchen on its own, but have the capability of, sharing employees, the kind of a non-traditional space kind of feel to it because of the employee base. When you start creating in that market, it's simple for them to work at both locations and cross utilize. Those are the kind of things we're wanting to do, is to simplify things for our franchisees. We're looking for other brands that are convenient for us to be working with, like a Crave cookie or a Crumble cookie, Nothing Bundt cakes, because they're not competitive in that space, but also work very well in an area that both brands will be flourishing in. So we're looking for all those synergies, and obviously growing in the airport space. We've got multiple airport RFPs out, as I mentioned earlier, coming to Houston, most likely coming to Atlanta. There's about 5 others I'd love to pitch out there right now that we're coming to, but we're too close, and I don't want to jinx it. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
well.
excited.
Like I said, I think that's a really interesting strategy for growth from a developmental standpoint. And then, as you were talking, and you mentioned the woman that is also involved in racing, I sat there and went, "Huh." The first major metropolitan area they went for outside of Chicago is Indianapolis, home of the Indy 500.
Yeah.
Jimmy likes racing.
Yep.
Coincidence?
It's funny
I
how that
think
worked
not.
out. I guess that's God speaking to us,
I
right?
like, I like, is the next one in Talladega? Yeah.
Probably not. Not Talladega's out in the middle of nowhere. But no, absolutely. It's kind of funny that way that worked out. It's story behind that's actually funny, because the way that I reached out to Jamie because of a post that she made to Twitter about wanting to have a conversation about some different stuff. So that was really funny. But Cody, her husband, has become a great friend of mine, and he's the kind of relationship I'm looking for all of my franchisees, because we communicate very well with each other. We look at each other as friends, I think, now than just business cohorts, and look at the path of when I look for other franchisees. He's kind of that grouping of, he's someone that I would use as a reference to say, hey, what do if you met this person, what would you think of them growing with our group? And we know at the end of the day, it's going to be a big family of franchisees, and we want to keep things all in the family. We want to keep
Yeah,
the family happy too. So uh,
that's cool.
what we want to do.
All right, so Talladega's out for now, but maybe Daytona.
Maybe date that. Hey, Jackson's not too far from there. So,
Well, and then you mentioned Detroit, Motor City. So,
oh yeah. Yeah, like I mentioned, we've got a group up there I'm working with, and pretty excited about that as well.
Wrapping up. So when you're not working, what do you like to learn about? You got a lot of interesting interests there, from racing to skiing.
Yeah,
What do you
real
like
estate is
learning about?
funny. Yeah, real estate's in my past, real estate's always been kind of a pleasure, a piece of like what I do. I like to dabble in real estate, but now it's become more of my focus. I used to sell the franchises, and I let my real estate guys deal with that. Now I'm dealing with real estate myself, so it's still a passion of mine, but still now it's more of a working tool that I use.
Mhm.
I, you know, Honestly, just fun with the family. That's anything we can go do. Our kids are still young, so we're always looking to go uh, to a fun event. I'm not sure if you don't have super young kids, but there's a group called Ninja Kids out of Utah that do all these fun events, and my kids like to do kind of like the American Ninja Warrior type stuff. So yeah, we
Yeah.
go to those.
By the way, I love that. My kids are older, but they were always athletic, and then after they got out of school, they've been marathoners,
Cool.
and the three of us just finished our first half Ironman.
Yeah.
So, and the Ninja Warriors, that's cool. That's
Yeah,
some cool stuff.
our kids love it, and then this group, they do these shows, and they're really entertaining and fun. It's family fun friendly, so those things are a key component of us. Wrestling is a huge thing in our family. All my daughter wrestles. Girl wrestling is growing exponentially right now across the country. She's only 7. This is our first real year. She started last year. I've got a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old. They all wrestle, and I coach. So we have about 150 kids that are in our community, Bloomington, Normal, Illinois. And we got a club called the Iguanas, and it's a huge passion of mine. I helped coach high school wrestling for several years when I was younger, And now that my kids are in it, it's fun to coach them. I try to we have 20 coaches because we have 150 kids, but I try to help them as much as possible. But the atmosphere of that many kids, and when we go to tournaments on the weekend, it's absolutely insane. Kids are running everywhere, and we've got, at any given time, we've got kids on all these mats. So you're always looking out for our wrestling singlets and where you need to go and who you're going to coach, and it's just so much fun. So
I didn't realize that wrestling at the junior level went down to that you could start at a
yeah,
5-year-old.
I have a niece that's 3 years old that's starting this year. So, if that
My
tells you,
lord.
yeah, I mean, she's having fun in the room for the most part. Yeah, but it's the understanding the sport and being athletic, period, is the most important thing. We call it wrestling athletic club because, we don't just want to key in on the wrestling piece. These kids are young. We want to teach them how to be nimble and be able to run around and be
Uh-huh.
playful, and really teach them at that level. And it goes all the way up to like 14-year-olds with our club. They go to 8th grade. So, we have different levels of classes. So, at any given week, I have 6 different, you know, practices that I'm at. When I'm not traveling, a good thing is that we do have 20 guys that help coach. So,
Yeah.
we kind of share responsibility, and when one guy's traveling, another's not. And we really do a good job of working through that. And then when we got tournaments, we got so many kids that a lot of times the tournaments that we go to fill up. So half of our kids are, in Chicago, half of them are near St. Louis, and we're all split in different areas to go and make sure that our coach coverage is good at those tournaments. But it's just another fun thing that we do.
That's really cool, and I I mean, honestly, it's the first time I've heard of youth, wrestling club. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, and, uh, is it a growing, pastime? Or is it a
Yeah. Well,
growing,
the
activity?
fastest growing sport in America right now is female wrestling. Girls wrestling is exploding throughout high schools and whatnot, because there really wasn't that program. So now that's why exploding. Wrestling is dependent upon the area. I think it's been big for a very long time. You go to Iowa, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Ohio; those states are going to be very strong in wrestling. Up in the Northeast, the New Jerseys and the New Yorks have really great wrestling programs. California has some great wrestling programs. As you get in the South, it's more football focused, and wrestling's, I
Mhm.
think, kind of like an extra that you can do. But I wrestled since I was 4. So
Right.
I was in a kids club when I was young. My grandfather was a coach, so that passion was kind of brought to me through family. And same, my grandfather raced too, so that's where that all came from. So I blame him for all my passions, whether good or bad. Racing can get expensive, so
Yeah.
sometimes I'm happy with them, and sometimes I'm like, "Ugh, why are we doing this?" But we love it.
Well, it's a good thing, and I think the interesting thing, and if I find this with just kids in general, and that it's like, like something like that, you teach them at a young age, and they become that much more responsible
Yeah,
when they get to being of age,
yeah.
because it's not a new toy to play with and exploit. It's like, I know what I'm doing, right? It's like,
Wrestling what I
and
love about
wrestling is, yeah,
discipline
good.
created within it. Now we like to have fun with these kids. I mean, some of these kids are so young, so a little bit of games, a little bit of activities, but we're teaching the structure, and then we're also teaching them the responsibility of listening. When you're coached to, and to take a knee, or looking at the coach in the eye, kind of just like the little traits that I think a lot of times have been lost in our past couple generations of growth of youth. I think that's very important, and I think because we have fun while we do that, I think it makes it a little bit more easy for the parents to have the conversation with their kids at home, or, hey, what coach say. They kind of use us. I've had several parents say since they started wrestling, we can tell a difference from them at home because we mentioned something that you guys said in the room, and that makes all of us coaches proud. It's so a fun thing to hear, and a rewarding thing to hear.
Well, I'm a, especially with kids, but also as an adult, a true big believer in that kind of fitness and the discipline that sport brings. And what's amazing is the research that shows that no, it's a symbiotic relationship, right? It's like you can't really fully develop the mental capacity unless you're taking care of your body. Like they work hand in hand.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that, reading about that many, many moons ago. And then just recently, the cool, and this kind of ties back to what you're talking about on the kids sport. I was interviewing a woman that does Lego Serious Play. and basically you use Legos in training sessions or problem solving sessions to model what you're thinking of. Anyway, without going into the really interesting thing, because it ties into this mind body
Yeah,
thing,
absolutely.
is the research shows, and it's just fascinating that because it's the physical beings that we are, that when you are constructing something or doing something tactilely with your hands, it actually opens up the right brain to learning because
Yeah.
you're exploring the world tactically, tactilely, and it and actually changes the physiology of your body to open up the learning on the right side. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with me. And so before we go, anything else you want to say to the folks out there, or how can they get a hold of you
Yeah, you
if they're
could,
interested?
feel free to email me at jmcfeeters@theproteinbar.com or go to theproteinbar.com. If you go to the franchising page and you hit learn more, you fill out the information. That's me. You're going to get an information back from. You'll get an email that schedules a call with me through Calendly. And honestly, I'm easy to find. If you find me on LinkedIn, Jimmy McFeeters, um, I would say those are the best places to find me.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, my guest today was Jimmy McFeeters. Jimmy, thank you so much for being here. Jimmy's the Vice President of Development and Franchising at the Protein Bar and Kitchen. We learned all about them, how they're growing, and how you can grow your network in a way that keeps the quality high. And it's all about that long-term focus. So, Jimmy, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
And to everybody out there, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.